Below is a speculative what-if timeline, a thought experiment, not a prediction, that projects how today's U.S. political dynamics, Trump's second term, the big beautiful bill, rising ICE power, Supreme Court decisions, and state-level voting restrictions could unfold if they were to follow the same playbook that carried Germany from the Reichstag fire, 1933, to the Nazi consolidation of power, 1938 to 39. Current, documented milestones are footnoted. Everything beyond July 2025 is extrapolation. Phase, when, real-world precedents, Germany, 1930s. Plausible U.S. events and mechanisms. Everything BO, 0. Preconditions already in place. Jan-July 2025. Hitler's 1933 coalition plus SA intimidation. H.R. 1 Big Beautiful Bill. Slashes social programs, funds ICE wall, inflates deficit. Cider Search 2. ICE detentions of non-criminal immigrants up 1,270% since Jan 2025. Site turn searched. SCOTUS allows birthright citizenship order to proceed. Limits nationwide injunctions. Site turn search 5. State laws tightening voting registration proliferate. 1. Emergency consolidation. Joel 2025. Feb 2026. Reichstag fire decree suspends civil liberties. White House declares border national emergency, citing cartel invasion. DOJ uses new anti-riot definitions to arrest protest organizers. SCOTUS's injunction ruling speeds enforcement of executive actions. ICE budget surge, 170B, funds 10K new agents, expanding raids into interior cities. Cite legislative lock-in. MAR 2026. NAV 2026, midterms. Enabling Act gives Hitler decree power. GOP-led House passes American Sovereignty and Security Act, delegating broad rulemaking to DHS-DOJ. Senate narrowly approves after filibuster reform. Simple majority constitutional questions. Swing state legislatures fast-track bills shrinking early voting, purging rolls. Armed poll observers normalize intimidation. Turnout among marginalized voters drops sharply. Result, 2026 midterm secure Republican supermajorities in both chambers. 3. Elimination of institutional checks. 2027 Gleichschaltung, one-party control of states' civil service. Administration forces senior civil service loyalty oaths, non-signers reassigned or dismissed. A coordinated block of 34-plus GOP legislatures triggers an Article 5 convention proposing 2 amendments. 1. Balanced budget, exempting defense homeland security. 2. Voter ID and citizenship clause voiding federal oversight. Ratification campaign leverages disinfo and corporate funding. Within 18 months, 38 states comply. 4. Parallel paramilitary, 2027 to 2028. SASS expand, opposition parties banned. DHS charters a volunteer Homeland Guard, veterans plus deputized civilians, to assist ICE and CBP. States with hard-right governors integrate local militias into Guard reserve units. Training on federal ranges legitimizes armed street presence. Left-wing demonstrations meet escalating counter-protester violence. Federal prosecutors use anti-domestic extremism statutes disproportionately against left activists. Controlled election and propaganda lock. NAV 2028, presidential. Unity list, press Gleichschaltung. Social media rule changes, Section 230 overhaul, compel platforms to elevate verified patriotic voices. Algorithms throttle independent outlets. USPS budget cuts plus new ID rules cripple mail-in ballots. Under emergency rules, Election Day monitoring zones place Homeland Guard within 100 feet of polling places in border and urban counties. Trump wins re-election by comfortable EC margin. Exit polling suggests depressed opposition turnout rather than genuine swing. 6. Legal repression of dissent. 2029 Nuremberg laws, banning of opposition parties. American Values Protection Act criminalizes anti-American hate speech, vague, enforced selectively. Flag burning, certain protest chants, and display of un-American symbols become felony offenses. Nonprofit status revoked for NGOs aiding undocumented immigrants. Universities lose federal funds for politicized DEI programs. 7. Full authoritarian entrenchment, 2030 to 2031. Kristallnacht, totalitarian state. ICE detention network morphs into processing and relocation centers, holding 500K migrants and a growing number of U.S.-born security detainees, activists, journalists. Coordinated raids on radical media outlets, investigative reporters charged with espionage for using leaked documents. Supreme Court, now 7-2 conservative after 2 retirements, upholds indefinite detention and speech restrictions. International sanctions bite. Administration responds with nationalist propaganda, blaming globalist sabotage. Why this trajectory is plausible in a worst-case sense. 1. Legal infrastructure is already moving toward executive dominance, SCOTUS on injunctions, birthright citizenship, and the unitary executive theory. 2. Mass surveillance and policing capacity, ICE, CBP, fusion centers, is better funded and technologically superior to 1930s Germany. 3. Patchwork state election control allows incremental disenfranchisement without a single federal coup. 4. Digital disinformation lets the ruling coalition delegitimize critics faster than 20th century regimes could. Off-ramps that could derail this slide. Federal courts reassert injunction power if public pressure forces reform or expansions to the Supreme Court. Large-scale worker and consumer strikes, a la French pension protests, disrupt key industries, forcing concessions. States with strong democratic norms form interstate compacts to protect voting rights and refuse guard deployments. A broad cross-ideological coalition, labor, faith, business, frames the crisis as supra-partisan and demands rollback of emergency powers. Landmark journalism and whistleblower evidence spark bipartisan outrage, triggering impeachment or 25th Amendment action. If current trends, expanding executive power, escalating anti-immigrant nationalism, voter suppression, and selective law enforcement, continue unchecked, the United States could, within a single presidential term, replicate many structural milestones that enabled Nazi Germany's totalitarian turn. The outcome is not inevitable, but history shows how quickly democracies can erode when fear politics, economic scapegoating, and weakened institutions converge. Use the scenario to stress test strategies for safeguarding civil liberties, voting rights, and pluralist democracy now, while the guardrails still hold.